Evening, everyone. Oh, we're so far away. So the title is The Best Place to Rejoice is in the Lord. I don't know if I covered that, if I'm being honest, but I think I do have a point here. So if you'll stick with me, I'll land this plane, but it's all going to lead to one point, and hopefully that will be of benefit to us. I want to start by asking, where do you find joy? There's certainly a number of ways that you can enjoy and experience and find joy. And you'll find as many different answers as there are people you ask. Here's a sample of answers from a forum that I researched, which asked the question, what are the things in your life that truly bring you joy? My clothes, my motorcycle, my dog, feeling after being done in the gym, air conditioning, vegetable garden, sleeping in, watching my cat enjoy life, loose leaf tea, and running. This wasn't just one person, by the way. This was many people. And these are just a handful of answers. And of course, we may find some of them silly or even strange. How the most torturous activity on earth, running, can bring someone joy is beyond me. And they're clearly a psychopath. Unless it's running to my air-conditioned bedroom where I can sleep in. I'm staying far away from running. But just like how you and I might disagree about things that bring us joy, we may also have different definitions of what joy is. So let's define it now. When I ask, where do you find joy, I'm asking, what is it that fills your being with intense, long-lasting happiness and satisfaction of life? C.S. Lewis provided an interesting definition of joy. He first distinguished joy as separate from happiness and pleasure, and then said joy has indeed one characteristic, and one only, in common with those: the fact that anyone who has experienced it will want it again. I doubt whether anyone who has tasted it would ever, if both were in his power, exchange it for all the pleasures in the world. But then joy is never in our power, and pleasure often is. Think about that list of examples I read earlier. I would challenge anyone who found joy, as it were, in those things to compare it to that definition and see how well it holds up. The book of Ecclesiastes repeatedly impresses the point that our life is brief, and there is nothing that will satisfy the longing within us. In chapter 2, the preacher says, I did not restrain myself from getting whatever I wanted. I did not deny myself anything that would bring me pleasure. So all my accomplishments gave me joy. But at the end of all these things, he concluded all these achievements and possessions are ultimately profitless, like chasing the wind. There is nothing gained from them on earth. Earlier in the chapter, he listed many things he did and gained. And we could just as easily write in the list we heard earlier. I increased my possessions. I gathered clothes for myself and rode my motorcycle. I played with my dog and watched my cat. I sipped loose leaf tea after working out at the gym. I slept in while feeling the cool air conditioning. It seems silly to phrase it that way, but that is what the teacher was saying about those things. They brought him happiness for a short time, and then they were gone. He was right back to where he was before he had those things, in misery, suffering, and pain. Jesus made the point that you cannot serve God and other things, but that's what the teacher was doing by pursuing pleasure. He was serving those things which ultimately failed him. The teacher, however, does give us a hint on how to have joy in this life at the end of that book by saying the whole duty of man is to serve God. That word is strange, though, isn't it? Duty. How would a duty, an order, a command, bring us joy? If you'll turn to Deuteronomy 15, there's an example of how that might look. Here Moses is relaying commandments God gave to the Israelites, and the subject of freeing a household slave is covered. In verse 15, if you'll read, remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt, and the Lord your God redeemed you. Therefore I'm commanding you to do this thing today. However, if the servant says to you, I do not want to leave you, because he loves you and your household, since he is well off with you, you shall take an awl and pierce a hole through his ear to the door. Then he will become your servant permanently. These were human masters who were so loved by their servants that when given the opportunity to be free, they didn't want to leave their household. They felt a sense of joy in serving those masters. What does that mean for our relationship with our master? Do we have the same joy in serving the Lord? Rhoda, a seemingly insignificant person in the Bible, a slave girl, demonstrates such a joy for us. In the previous verses of Acts 12, it said Peter had been placed in prison by King Herod, and those in the church were earnestly praying to God for him. No doubt Rhoda was part of those praying for Peter. And can you imagine her joy at hearing Peter at the gate? She immediately runs to tell others about what she's heard. An amazing miracle for sure, a true experience of the power of the Lord, with which we could end by talking about her joy in that one act. However, I think there's something much deeper than this one miracle, something for which we can all rejoice in the Lord for. Rhoda's joy was not simply in experiencing this miracle or even just seeing Peter again. Rhoda rejoiced in what this miracle meant for her because the Lord had done this before. You know how I enjoy my patterns when examining the text of the Bible, so we're going to look at one and just stay with me for a moment. If you look at Acts 12 and you back up to verse 3, where it says, Peter's arrest took place during the Feast of the Unleavened Bread. Peter is bound and guarded at the behest of King Herod and the Jews plotting against him. An angel comes and tells Peter to quickly get up and put on his clothes and sandals. He is escorted through an impossible way of escape and said at the end of it, now I know for certain that the Lord has sent his angel and rescued me from the hand of Herod and from everything the Jewish people were expecting to happen. In Exodus 12, we read of a similar situation. The Lord set the Israelites free from the bondage they endured at the hands of Pharaoh and the Egyptians. The Lord told them to eat the Passover, the precursor to the Feast of the Unleavened Bread, in haste, with their sandals on their feet. An angel of the Lord came over the land and set God's people free through an impossible way of escape. Then Moses sang a song rejoicing in the Lord with this phrase, by your loyal love you will lead the people whom you have redeemed. In John chapter 20, Mary Magdalene goes searching for Jesus at his tomb, but cannot find him. She assumes someone moved his body and is emotionally crushed. Jesus appears to her by the impossible path of escape through death. And in that moment, her pain is transformed into joy. The one she served, the one she hoped in, and the one she loved had given her joy. The God of Israel who freed them from Egypt, who freed Peter from King Herod, has given us joy through the resurrection of Jesus, our Passover lamb. This joy comes from a master who loved us enough to die in our place to set us free from the bondage of sin. I appreciated Todd's mentioning of the sufferings that we go through here in his prayer, because that's exactly what this is pointing us to. This joy gives us the strength to continue through difficult times, because God saw us on the brink of eternal death and provided the path for us through an impossible escape. He saw us then, and he sees us now. Each and every time we suffer, each and every time we cry, each and every time we're hurt, and all the pain that we see. God has promised to wipe away every tear from our eyes, and death will not exist anymore, or mourning, or crying, or pain in the new creation he has prepared for us. How could we not want to serve a master like that forever? He has promised us life eternal with him and an imperishable crown. I believe we can and will rejoice in that forever. May we rejoice always in the Lord.